Welcome back to the channel. My name is Tronage, and today we're going to be talking about the ISDT FD-200. That's a 200-watt smart discharger for your LiPo packs. Why do you even need something like this? I'm going to tell you, so stick around. Alright guys, the ISDT FD-200. Let's start off basics. Why do you even need this? Why do you want to discharge your LiPo packs? It seems crazy. Why don't you just put them on your quad and fly? Well, for some of you that's perfectly fine and perfectly normal, and you're able to do that, and more power to you. However, there's some of us out here, like myself, who run into issues. The weather's unpredictable, your people that you fly with are unpredictable, and your schedule maybe even becomes unpredictable. And even the fields that you fly at are unpredictable in their availability. So with everything being unpredictable, what ends up happening is you charge up a whole bunch of packs. Sometimes I may even charge up, I have like a travel power supply, where it's really, I'll show it to you. I'll show you close up later on, but basically here it is. And it's a whole bunch of old batteries that I don't trust to fly in a quad anymore, but they're certainly good enough to hold power for portable charging. So that's just like one single giant battery pack is what it becomes to power chargers, so I can do charging in the field. And if I have that charged, or if I have excess batteries that are charged when I come home, you need to take care of them. Now, you want to make sure you take care of your batteries, because if you leave them in a charged state for too long, they will kind of self-destruct. And actually, I was a bad boy and I did that, and I actually had a battery go bad on me just recently prior to me purchasing this. And that's sort of what's inspired me to actually go and buy this, as well to make a video about it, to hopefully prevent you from making those same mistakes. But if you're not aware, your LiPo packs, if they're not going to be used for a period of time, they need to be brought down to a storage voltage, which means per cell, if it's a normal LiPo pack, the voltage should be 3.8 volts, give or take, but close to 3.8 per cell. That's great. That's called storage voltage, and you can leave the pack like that, no problems. But if you drain a pack beyond that and you go too low and you leave it for a period of time, or you charge it fully charged and you put it away fully charged, both of those two extremes, not good for a LiPo. It starts to degrade, starts to break down, it starts to become puffy, and it can ultimately kind of self-destruct itself, and it won't really work anymore. And I don't want to keep spending money on replacing battery packs. I end up damaging them enough with prop strikes and stuff like that. So now, as a side note, if they're a high volt pack, then your storage voltage is going to be about 3.85 per cell, just because the voltage is a little bit higher. So your storage voltage is a little bit higher. With that being said now, it's nice having a way to bring the voltages down to a storage voltage without flying them, because you're home for a reason. You couldn't fly. That's why you're home. So you need a way to get the power out. Now, there are several solutions that I've done on the channel. I'll put some links up here and in the descriptions below. But there's the ISDT FD-100, and we'll take a close look at this a little bit later on. But I did a whole video about it as well. The AOKoda one. This is the, what's this one called? The 150 watt, the one with the light bulbs on the inside here. And I made my little lamp out of parts I got at Lowe's, I believe I got it. And we'll take a look at that a little bit close up in a moment. But there's different ways to take power out of batteries. This one's very different, and we'll get into the details of it once we crack it open and see what's inside. But spoiler alert, it's got Bluetooth on it. So you can use your phone, you can see what's going on, you know what's starting, you know what's stopping, you know you know what's up because it's on your phone, which is a pretty cool thing. So, all right, here's what we're going to do. I got a little bit ahead of myself, but here's what we're going to do. I'm going to bring you all in close. We're going to unbox this thing together, take a look at it, give you my initial impressions about it. Then what we're going to do, we're going to give it a kind of comparison between the other two products that I showed you here, kind of like a shootout of which one's best for you and which one I would prefer to use. And then we'll kind of do like a little shootout where I'll take a battery, the same battery on each of them, and discharge it at their max power and see which one can discharge it first. But we'll get into that when the time comes. But before we get started with any of that, slam that subscribe button. While you're at it, hit that bell icon. Makes finding my videos a whole heck of a lot easier. Keeps you in the know when I post videos such as this one. All right, so why don't you come in close and let's get this open. And here it is. Wow, that was actually kind of powerful. I'll show you the box here, get all the little sides before we start opening it all up. Nothing on that side, nothing on that side. Your specs, just in case you're curious what they are. There you go. There's your specs. Good stuff. Now let's cut it open. See what we got inside. Take off that wonderful cellophane. Box is pretty heavy, by the way, which is no surprise because there is going to be a lot of metal and heat sinks inside. If you're wondering what I'm doing, the box is falling out slowly. It's not that I'm just sitting here holding it. So inside the box, we have a little sticker sheet with some ISDT stuff, some BatGo stuff. There's some white ones here. Probably can't see that, but a little sticker. Little user guide. Probably has all like the settings and how to use it and stuff. So we'll have to take a look at that in a little while. And then we have the unit itself, which is pretty freaking big and heavy. And we have a couple little feetsies that are probably going to go on the bottom of it, just like these ones did on the bottom of this one here. So I'll be installing those in a little while. First impressions are it is very heavy. And of course it's going to be heavy because, as I said, there's a lot of metal inside here. If you're not aware what this is basically it's got some MOSFETs inside that burn the power, turning it into heat. That heat goes onto some aluminum heat sinks, and there's some fans in here that blow that heat out. So we're basically turning electrical power into heat. And this has two fans with two basic like channels that run through. Essentially, physically, it's almost as if you had two of the ISDT FD-100s stacked up. But there's actually more to it than just that. But we'll go into the comparison in a little while. So on this side, you have really just a little bit of venting, some information here in case you want to see what that says. There's that info. And the rest of the sides are really just all plain except for the side that has the actual business end of things. So on this side, we have the little XT60 connector with some branding and such. And over here, we have the buttons that we push to turn it on and off, make our selections, as well as some LED indicators that tell us what we are doing. Excellent, cool stuff. What you do, obviously with nothing connected to it, nothing's going to happen when you push any of the buttons. So what we're going to have to do is plug in a battery. And voila, nothing happened, which is appropriate. Nothing's going to happen until you push these buttons. So off the bat, the way this works is this can discharge a 2S up to an 8S. But if you look, it's only listing from 2S to 6S. So how do you get to 8S? Well, I'll show you in a little bit, but you'll see there'll be two LEDs. So it'll light up, it'll basically add up to be 8. So let's turn this on first. It does this little thing. And right now it's showing me it's on 2 and it's giving me an alarm. Because it was actually set to be on 5, it was actually set up to be on 7S. It was on 5S and 2S, which is 7. This is a 4S pack. So if you follow this little thing, it's showing you the S, the cell counts and this button. So if I pick this button, it's letting me pick what I want. So it's 2S, 3S, 4, 5, 6. 5 plus 2 is 7. And 6 plus 2 is 8. That's how you know if you're all the way up on 8S. But this is a 4S. Now if I want to set my discharge, I got 5 amps, 10, 15, 20, or 25 amps. So that's how you pick your amps. Now, I mentioned before, I'll unplug this for a moment because I don't want it to start discharging. Now, I mentioned earlier that you are able to tie this into your phone using Bluetooth so you can see what's going on and change the settings and also do some firmware updates to it. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. So the first thing you're going to need to do is get the BatGo app. So I've already downloaded it from your app store. It says on the box they have it for iOS as well as for Android. So I have an Apple phone, so I'm going to be using the iOS version, and I launch the ISDGo app. It wants to use Bluetooth because that's how it's going to connect to here. So I'm going to hit OK. And now it's just sitting here. It's sitting here because, well, it doesn't know what devices you have. So you would have to go over here to the plus sign. And it's going to scan for Bluetooth devices. You have to set the device and wait for Bluetooth binding to be made so I can hook it up. So to put this into binding mode, you got to hook up a battery, because without a battery, it doesn't have any power. And then you're going to push both buttons together at the same time. And see, now it's doing that little blue bouncing back and forth. That means it's in Bluetooth pairing mode, which it's going to be looking for it over here. And then we'll hit the refresh button. We'll hit the FD-200 and pair it. And now we're successfully bound. So now we can go into the FD-200. And I'm just going to turn this on its side now. And you see, while doing this live, it found a new firmware. So why not update that firmware? So let's do the firmware update. We'll hit OK. Okay, so now I'm a little confused because it's saying to remove all batteries and keep your phone close to the charger. Because it's giving the same message as if this was a battery charger. If I remove this battery, this won't have any power, so it can't communicate. So you will have to leave a battery on here, even though it says to remove it. Now, I can't help but feel like I've been sitting here now for a while. I've sped it up for you, obviously, but the beeping that it's making sounds very reminiscent of like on a TV show or a movie when someone's in the hospital and they have the heart monitor going off. So it's kind of reminding me of that. But the main reason why I'm talking right now is you're seeing it's taking a very long time to transfer this firmware over. And that's because Bluetooth is not a very fast transfer protocol to move a file over. And I'm aware of this because back when I was using the Team Black Sheep race timer thing, to try to update the firmware through Bluetooth would take an exceptionally painful amount of time to actually transfer that over Bluetooth. And this is faster than that transfer, but it is still quite slow in the sake of how long it's taking to transfer this firmware. However, the beauty of this is that it's just doing it over the air using my phone without any additional cables or such, like I'll talk about later on with the FD-100. So now I'm at that weird spot when you do a firmware upgrade. You're not really sure what to do next, because it kind of finished. It said update success. The lights on my unit are just off, as you can see here. There's no lights on. They turned off. They're not beeping. It's not lighting anymore. And this is not really connecting, so it's almost as if it rebooted. But I'm not sure if it rebooted. And I'm afraid if I pull this power off to force it to reboot, I don't want to end up like bricking it. So I'm going to give it another minute or so here. And if it doesn't actually connect back to it, I will then pull the power on and try again. All right, I'm going to bite the bullet. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to leave the power attached. I'm just going to push one of these buttons to maybe wake it up. Maybe that's all it needs, is just a button push to wake up. That's all it needed. It just needed to get woken up. So it's going to start discharging here, but I don't want it to discharge yet. So I'm going to stop that action, which is now cool that I can do that on my phone, turn it on and off, pause, and resume the discharge cycle. It's showing me right now that this battery is at 85%. It's showing me it's 4S. It's telling me what's going on. It's showing me my discharger information, temperatures, and all that fun stuff, which is pretty nifty. I have it, it's currently out of the box set up to just kind of start. And that may or may not be the way you want to have it run. That's what this automatic discharge thing is. You can turn that on or off. It's set to be open, which I'm guessing means on. So when you plug it in, you hit your settings, it'll operate very similar to the ISD-100, where you punch in your numbers. Once it's set up, it's just going to start and go. But if you're in the app here, you can stop that. And if you hit start again, it'll let you change the settings. So you can change what charging current or discharge current you want to have it set at. And what's interesting is it's actually, when you're using, because you're not limited to LEDs, so obviously they don't have to hold a whole bunch of LEDs, you can actually set that discharge current all the way down to 0.5 amps. So you're not locked into the 5, 10, 15, 20, or 25. You can use 4, 4.5, 3.5, 3, all the way down to half amp. So you can actually, even though this is a giant discharger, you can actually use these for smaller batteries. So that is a pretty cool thing. You can set your cutoff voltage what you want it to be. So the only thing I'm noticing is that it doesn't go higher than 3.80. And as I mentioned, for high volt packs, you'd want to bring it down to 3.85. So it would be nice if that you were able to go to 3.85 on the discharge. Little tip is that even though they want to be at 3.85, it's actually a little quicker and easier to discharge past storage voltage and then throw them on the charger real quick and charge them back up to that storage voltage, because this discharger will never get them all properly balanced, and by charging it up to that point, it's a lot easier for the charger to do the balancing. Because one thing you may or may not notice, this does not have a balance port, and at first glance you may say, hey, that's kind of a shortcoming because it has no idea what the other cells are doing. It just has the main battery voltage. Well, there's two things going on here. Number one, it does have the BATGO technology, and they're obviously trying to push that, since it's their technology, that would transfer the information about the cells to the unit without having to use the balance tap. However, I don't use BATGO technology. I don't have any batteries that use BATGO technology, and I probably won't in the near future. However, the one thing you have to realize, if these are batteries that you were planning to charge and fly on a quad, and you put them on the quad and flew it, the quad doesn't have a balance tap, so you would have over discharged the battery in the quad. So if you have a, suspect battery and you over discharge one of the cells because it's not properly balanced, it's kind of your own fault, because you should know which batteries are suspect, and have a unit like this guy, one of these deals where you can plug a battery onto it and do your own monitoring of where your cells are at before you start just blindly discharging something. So I really don't think it's a shortcoming at all, because I really just want a way to get the power out of the pack. Let's see here, cutoff voltage. No, it'll only go down to 3.3. 3.3 is what you would consider a dead LiPo, not destroyed, but you should never, ever drain a LiPo past that point. In fact, you really shouldn't even come close to that, because that can do some damage, but that's as far as it'll let you discharge. But I will say I do feel the software is in a first version development stage where there can definitely be more information and more usability added to it, and I feel that they probably will do that at a later date. but I'm just kind of happy to be able to see what's going on, be able to start my discharge. I can say, okay, go, and boom, it's going to start going. And it'll start discharging the pack that I have attached to it, and I can keep an eye on it and know what's going on with my pack. I'll stop that. So now we got all the ins and outs of the FD-200. Let's also look at the specs of the other competitors. So first off, let's do weight. So get my scale going here. So the FD-200 comes in at a whopping almost 780 grams. Pretty darn heavy. If we compare that to the FD-100, you'll see that this is coming in just shy of 300 grams. So it's less than half the weight. It's also less than half the size. You can see it's skinnier as well. It's squattier. So obviously this is about a little bit under half the size. It's also shorter. So if portability is important to you, this is the one you're going to want because it's a little bit smaller. But if you got the room, this guy is certainly just as durable, just as rugged. It's just bigger and heavier. And then for full-on comparison, let's look at the AOKoda. Obviously, it's going to be hard to weigh it with the light bulbs, but I'll just weigh it with the control module. I'll hold these in the air. Comes in at about 85 grams. By the time you add the light bulbs and my little lighthouse, we end up at 653 grams. So out of the three options, the FD-200 is the heaviest of them, but it is certainly also the most robust, the most, technologically advanced one. Has Bluetooth, has BatGo, can do up to 25 amps. This guy is a powerhouse. One thing I want to mention is for firmware updates. You saw me do live. I wasn't even expecting to do a firmware update. You saw me do a firmware update live to this guy. So clearly they're updating the software, but the fact that I can just do that over Bluetooth is very convenient. For the FD-100 to do a firmware update, you have to get some extra equipment in the form of this little dongle guy. So this little thing plugs into your USB port. It's the ISDT SC linker is what this is called, if you want to take a peek at that. Plugs into your USB port. You plug a little cable into that end. You plug a cable into this end. And then that'll let you do the firmware updates from the website to the unit. With this, all Bluetooth. You don't even need to get extra equipment or cables or hook things up or anything along those lines, which is really, really cool. As I said, this also has the BatGo technology, which if you look in the XT60 connector, there's a little extra pin right here in the middle. Try to show you that. A little piece of metal right there in the middle. Right there. That's the connection for the BatGo. That's in the XT60 connector, and that's how it reads that information. But like I said, I don't have any BatGo batteries, nor do I plan on buying anytime soon. So that is sort of a feature that I won't be taking advantage of. So now with these three units involved, which of these is right for you? Well, here's how I'll lay them out. If you're on a very, very tight budget and money is a very high concern, but you still need to have one of these products, the AOKoda one is going to be your ticket. It's much cheaper than these other two. However, it does require, in my opinion, requires building this little lighthouse out of some metal materials just so that you don't have these light bulbs laying around. Because if these halogen light bulbs lean up against something, they can burn. It's not good. This makes it 100% more safe than it is with them just laying around. And then this is very not portable. I've never taken this outside of my house. It always just sits on my workbench to do discharging like that. It does have the balance ports, but like I said, it is very unreliable, so I don't even really consider that a feature. Of these two, if you want something that's a little bit smaller and a little bit more portable for out in the field, the ISDT 100 is going to be your choice because it is smaller, lighter, and can fit in your gear bag. I'm going to continue to carry this with me everywhere I go on the field so that I have a way to discharge my packs that I don't use while I'm on my way home. However, the FD-200 is going to be my main workhorse. It's what I'm going to use to discharge my big battery pack that I have. And, you know, this whole pack is 17,500 milliamp hours. And I know that because I wrote it on the back. But what's in here is actually there's 4 1800 mAh packs on this side. And then over here, there's 2 5200 mAh packs. If you want to take a quick little peek at my little rat's nest inside, you can see, move the wires out of the way, you can get a little idea of what's going on in there. You can see all the different batteries and all the balance taps are all wired in parallel to each other. And it all comes to this one balance tap here and this one main line out here, all in parallel. So this basically acts like a giant battery pack. But this takes forever to discharge if I don't use it. Now, why do I want a giant battery pack? Well, because this battery pack, 17,600 mAh, is sort of like the equivalent of 11 1500 milliamp hour batteries. So that's like 11 packs that I can charge in the field, and it's more than 11 that I can charge. And it's nice to just have it. It's very lightweight, and I can just bring it, and people can charge off it. I can charge off of it, and we have a good old time. But if I come home and it's not dead, I gotta discharge that thing, and that's a lot of battery power to like try to drain, especially with running it at 6 amps on the ISDT FD-100. That's what makes this one so great, is being able to crank it all the way up to 25 amps. It's going to really suck the power out of that battery pack. As well, if you're into parallel charging, then you're into using the FD-200 also. Why? Because if you parallel charged, you can also parallel discharge. Take those same batteries that are still fully charged that you didn't use. Obviously, rules still apply. Make sure you check your cell voltages before you put them on the parallel board. You know the deal. If you don't know the deal, I will be putting up a series of videos that is about charging and care for LiPo packs. But in any case, if you do already do parallel charging, throw your batteries back on the parallel board, hook your parallel board up to the FD-200, hit that discharge button, and they will be discharged lickety-split because of that 25 amp discharge rate. It'll be a dream. You won't be sitting there waiting forever. With that being said, we're going to do a little bit of a shootout now. And the way this is going to work is I'm going to hook up, I have the same battery pack for these guys. It is a TAT2 HV 1500 mAh 100C pack, and I have 3 of them. The only difference between them is 2 of them have the removable balance taps, and 1 of them is permanently attached. This is actually the battery pack I think we got in a quad box or a drone drop or one of them a couple months ago. These other 2 I bought. I did have 3 of these, but as I mentioned earlier, I was a bad boy and one of these kind of self-destructed themselves because I left it fully charged, which I shouldn't have. And if I would have had the FD-200 at that time, it wouldn't have been a problem. All right, so I'm going to do a little bit of a shootout, a little bit of a time lapse. I'm going to hook these 3 batteries that are all charged up to these 3 units. I'm going to crank them all up to their highest value, which this one I can't adjust. This one will be discharging at 25 amps, and this one will be discharging at 6 amps. Now, obviously, this one is going to do it first, but let's see how much quicker it is. So I think the FD-200 is now done, so I'm going to put a lap time on that. Yeah, it is done. It's blinking these little blue lights at me. The battery feels just a smidge warm, like as if you were doing some gentle flying. So that one's done. That is huge. So you can see now, while these other ones are still discharging, that took about, let's just call it 6 minutes to do that. Now typically when I'm flying, a battery will last about 3 minutes. So even on the maximum setting, it's still discharging the battery pack about half as fast as it would when you're flying. And now granted, that's with a 4S pack, and that's under this, you know, the conditions in the laboratory. But you get the idea. So now let's see how long these other ones take to complete their discharge. So the fan turned off on this, but it's not done yet, because it's going to beep when it's actually done. And over here you can see this is the problem that I was saying, where the balancing tap kind of actually slows it down. I'll move it over here for a moment so you can see the display here. I don't know if you can really see it or not, because I can't really move it much. Oh, let's lap that one. That's the FD-100 being done now. See, the problem here is that, back to the AOKoda one, this is not super accurate, and it always shows cell 1 being lower than it should be. If I disconnected this right now and tested it, they would all be in perfect balance. But because it's detecting this one being at a lower balance, it slows down the discharge, because it's saying, well, that one's going too far, while these other three are okay. And it's not just this pack. This happens across the board with this unit. Your unit may vary, but mine, channel 1 for cell 1, is always lower than it should be for the rest of the channels. And when it gets close to the discharge point, it slows down by turning the lights on and off, because it doesn't want to over discharge this cell. So what it's doing is it's just pulling the power out of these other cells and trying to balance the battery at the same time. And that's what's going on right now. And that's why it's going on and off and on and off and on and off. But it's going to take a long time to actually get this down to a normal value. So I think I'm going to call it here. But just for reference, I'll disconnect it so you can see, and we'll stop the timer there. So the biggest thing I'm seeing here, I'm seeing the FD-200 taking only 6 minutes to discharge that pack. I'm seeing the ISDT 100 taking a total of 16 minutes. So that's a pretty substantial amount of time. And then the AOKoda taking 18 plus minutes and still not completing the task. So clearly, if time is important to you, then the FD-200 is definitely going to be your choice, and the one that I would recommend, because it's going to get the job done quicker. It's perfectly fine, as you saw, for a standard pack. It takes 6 minutes. Flying it would take 3 minutes, so you're being twice as gentle to the pack to just charge it off the charger than if you flew it. So you're already babying the pack, if you think about it. So single pack at 25 amps, super fast. If you have power banks, if you have parallel boards that you use for charging and you want to discharge, 25 amps is definitely the way to go because you're going to be there for hours with these other choices. So for me, the FD-200 is the way to go. All right, so the FD-200, this thing performed above my expectations. I cannot believe in my shootout it only took literally 6 minutes to discharge a pack. And that is awesome because I was a little thinking, 25 amps, is that too much? Like, am I pushing the limits of a battery pack? But if you think about it, like I said, if flying a pack normally takes 3 minutes to discharge and I took 6 minutes to discharge it, I actually was more gentle on the pack doing it through this discharger than I would have been if I put it on a quad and flew it. Now, granted, if I dropped it even lower to 10 amps or 5 amps even, it's even probably better for the pack maybe, but 25 amps is definitely well within the realm of safe because it's twice as safe as flying it. And like I said, the lack that it doesn't have a balance tap on the unit to plug for the battery is sort of irrelevant because your quad doesn't have that. And your quad would have discharged the battery the same as, like, the point of this is you have a charged battery that you wanted to fly, but didn't, so you got to take the power out. If you flew it, you would have done the exact same damage that the discharger would do to it. So it's really just pay attention to what your cells are doing. Get yourself one of these little battery checkers and just look at your cell voltages and just make sure everything's kind of balanced. And if it's a little off, balance it or put it on your smart charger and just run a balance program to balance the cells. If you notice that repetitively happens to the same battery pack, write on it with a marker, suspect or something. I have a couple suspect packs. Those are the batteries that ended up in here. Then I knew that I really didn't trust them anymore. So using them as just a big battery source, they're not having that big voltage drain on it. And I can monitor the cells, and being parallel with other batteries, it kind of like everyone gets all happy. And even though one battery, maybe the cell wants to discharge a little bit quicker, the other cells make up for it, kind of a thing. I don't know, it's just the kind of the way I think of it. But in any case, the FD-200, the fact that it can go to 25 amps, the fact that it has Bluetooth and over-the-air firmware updates, the fact that you can set all the settings through your phone and stuff, I mean, this is like kind of a no-brainer. The only issue is the price. It's a little bit expensive, but for me, that's worth it because I end up having to keep buying batteries because I keep not discharging them because you saw this takes so long for just one battery pack. It took 16 minutes. If I'm running, let's do a little bit of math here. Let's say I come home with 5 batteries, 16 minutes times 5. That's 80 minutes of discharge time that I'm waiting for. Now, I can either do 16 minutes, switch it, 60 minutes, switch it, 60 minutes, switch it. Or even if I plug them all onto a parallel board using the ISD-100, it's still going to take 80 minutes. So it's still a long period of time. While that same 5 batteries now would only take 25 minutes with the ISD-200. So for me, it's a no-brainer. And actually, if you think about it, now that I have all 3, I can really multitask because now I can be running a lot of things discharging when I get home. I have 3 separate ways to pull power out of batteries. So I could actually be discharging 3 batteries like I just did. If you have all 3 of them, you got the best of all worlds. I got my travel one for my bag, my base station for at home, and then my lighthouse for just ambiance and coolness factor, I guess. I don't know. But I hope to help you out, got you some good information. Links to all these products will be in the description below. So if you do choose to pick up one of these, I'd appreciate it if you use one of my links. They are affiliate links, so it doesn't cost you anything extra, but it does help support the channel when you use those links. And even if you're not specifically buying any of these products, if you click those links, it still does help out the channel depending on what you purchase. So please use those links. It is greatly, greatly appreciated. So, as always, my name is Tronage. Fly strong.